Viva l'Accademia, viva professores, viva l'Accademia, viva professores, vivat membrum quod libert, vivat membra que libert, semper sint in flore, semper sint in flore. Professores, viva l'Accademia, viva professores, vivat membrum quod libert, vivat membra que libert, semper sint in flore, semper sint in flore. Viva l'Accademia, viva professores, viva l'Accademia, viva professores, vivat membrum quod libert, vivat membra que libert, semper sint in flore, semper sint in flore. Viva l'Accademia, viva professores, viva l'Accademia, viva professores, vivat membrum quod libert, vivat membra que libert, semper sint in flore, semper sint in flore. Viva l'Accademia, viva professores, viva l'Accademia, viva professores, vivat membrum quod libert, vivat membra que libert, semper sint in flore, semper sint in flore. Viva l'Accademia, viva professores, viva l'Accademia, viva professores, vivat membrum quod libert, vivat membra que libert, semper sint in flore, semper sint in flore.
Dear colleagues, dear students, dear trustees, Alderman Pex Langenberg and Hugo de Jonge of the community of Rotterdam, distinguished guests, also from Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the opening of the academic year 2015-2016. a very promising year in very many ways, with more new students than ever before. After a spectacular and unforgettable centennial year closed off in the presence of His Majesty the King last year, we rolled up our sleeves and we went back to work in true Rotterdam fashion. And at the start of this new year, I would like to first honor the tradition of mentioning the names of those from our university community who passed away last year. So may I invite you to rise. We deeply regret the tragic loss of 8 students: Ellen de Jong, Odette Botman, Sabrina Hengse, Josien Wondergem, Matthijs Mout, Iris Leter, Stefan Maus, and Yuri Rosvetov. We also mourn the loss of the following colleagues and former colleagues: Lalita Devi Rambajan, Johan van Rekom, Jacqueline Baars, Lizzie Patilaya, Paul Patoir, Professor Klein, Professor Liklama Nijenholt, Professor Siermai, Professor Van der Pijl, Professor Van Hoepen, Jan Veenbergen, Karel Sallaerts, and Professor Ellis. Our thoughts are with their loved ones in deep appreciation. Thank you. Please be seated again. Ladies and gentlemen, at the opening of the academic year 2013, now 2 years ago, we expressed the desire for our friends in The Hague to value the notion of trust and partnership just a little more, to respect the university's autonomy, knowing that we spend taxpayers' money sensibly and responsibly, and that we are fully transparent and accountable for our actions. We also pleaded for administrative easing, to lift the burden of bureaucracy that is both stifling and wasteful. This message, I'm pleased to say, resonated widely in the country. And while we must always remain skeptical, I know, about the correlation between speech on the one hand and ensuing policy on the other, I am delighted that Minister Bussemaker of Education and Science took our messages to heart in the Strategic Agenda for Higher Education, which was published in July. If you haven't read it, I can recommend the document for your reading list, especially the paragraph on future investments. For this university, we are looking at an annual investment of 6 million euros over the next 3 years as a pre-investment from our strategic reserves. And from 2018, we expect to receive an amount of 6 million per annum, gradually increasing to 12 million in 2021, and 22 million by 2030. So the opportunity to significantly invest in the quality of education is sizable. We're currently discussing various investment options with the deans, with the University Council, and the point of departure in that discussion is our intent to emphasize the academic nature of our education by strengthening its grounding in research. And the objective is to lay a strong foundation for the university of the future. We'll continue to seek maximum freedom and autonomy to invest within the framework of the strategic agenda. This is a responsibility that should be shouldered by the academic community and not dictated by policymakers or politicians. Already we can see the earmarks looming. 60% should go to extra teaching staff, 10% should go to small-scale education and to IT support, etc., etc., etc. This kind of earmarking is really not helpful, as each university has its own challenges and priorities, and we really need that autonomy to decide for ourselves. I would like to mark at this point a really significant achievement of our academic community. Over the last few years, we have reorganized the support functions and reduced the cost structure of the institution with 6 million structurally. And we are on track to meet all of our commitments under the performance contract with the government. So well done, and thank you to all who worked so diligently and hard to make it happen. Now it is timely to engage in a wider conversation about the kind of university that we want to be and how we wish to govern ourselves. Since Amsterdam saw the Maagdenhuis occupied in February of this year, several parallel discussions have taken place in Rotterdam. First and foremost, the University Council and the Executive Board took the initiative together to bring together stakeholders from all angles to discuss how we can strengthen and improve the quality of the dialogue and democracy in this university. At the same time, the Faculty of Philosophy, faced with deepening budget deficits, developed plans to grow its student base through a new offering of double degrees. And it's really encouraging that a potentially painful reorganization could thus be averted. We've had several sometimes heated debates with representatives from various interest groups, from Rethink Erasmus and Science in Transition to Philosophy Ground, about all kinds of topics ranging from the governance structure of this university to rethinking Zwarte Piet. In Rotterdam, we have worked really hard to create an open and respectful culture where dialogue and debate thrive and where critical thinking is encouraged. There's a slogan that English barristers and solicitors hold dear. It's called "Strive mightily, but eat and drink as friends." I like to think that this is what we do in Rotterdam. We take our issues really seriously, but we always eat and drink as friends. I believe this is one of the many things that set Erasmus University apart from others. The diversity of students is another distinguishing feature. With the increasing migration streams that the EU is facing, the diversity of our student population is also growing. Increasing numbers of students from countries torn by conflict find their way to a safe harbor of knowledge. Education is their new lease on life. Only last week, the Graduate School for Health Services, NIHES, sent off several fresh graduates from Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria into the world. They all excelled academically. So you can imagine that we were very disappointed to hear that one of our promising new law students was picked up with her family to be sent to her parents' country of origin this weekend. We have asked the authorities to review her situation as a matter of urgency, and we have applied for a student visa on her behalf. Every student matters. Ladies and gentlemen, the political agenda in the coming year will be dominated by the strategic agenda for higher education and the national research agenda. Both, I'm sure, will lead to very heated debate in Parliament. We currently observe a rather activist Parliament. They're very keen to challenge the choices and ambitions of the minister. And our interest in the education debate is clear and simple. A freedom to invest within the strategic direction of the agenda, which incidentally is congruent with our own agenda, with minimum political interference and red tape. Please, no new performance contracts. Regarding the national research agenda, without wanting to steal our guest speaker's thunder, let me preface her comments with a strong conviction that significant investments are required for the agenda to be meaningful in its implementation. This message can never ring loudly enough and will continue to be amplified as the next general elections are slowly approaching. The time is right for investing in the future. I hope and believe it is achievable in the next, let's say, 20 years to foster research that deserves important international accolades. There really is no reason why some of the work done at Erasmus University today should not bring forth a next Tinbergen. Why not? But he or she requires lavish amounts of freedom and resources. The vision is there, the execution is dependent on the support of many. And for that reason, I am very proud to announce today a new partnership between Erasmus University and Erasmus Trust Funds to set up an endowment fund campaign. Let's see the video.
In 1913, a group of Rotterdam entrepreneurs founded the Erasmus Trust Funds, and so began our city's long and prestigious tradition of higher education. Today, our business school is amongst the best in Europe. The Erasmus Medical Center and the Economics faculty are in the world top rankings. We are now revisiting our founding principles. By initiating a campaign to build the largest endowment fund for any Dutch university, and with this new independent source of finance, build the University of the Future. A leading university that educates the leaders of tomorrow and attracts the best students, scientists and minds in the world. It is our goal to produce future Nobel Prize winners, to be recognized for world-class research and education that matters, to make an active contribution to solving some of the world's greatest societal challenges. It's extraordinary what has been achieved over the last century. We now call upon you to support our endowment campaign. In the entrepreneurial spirit of Rotterdam and our founders, imagine what we can do together to solve society's major challenges and leave a lasting legacy for future generations. Will you support us in building this fund? Together, we will make it happen.
Thank you, Trust Funds. The board is here and to be continued, no doubt. I look forward to it. So let me now introduce our guest speaker. Beatrice de Graaf is Professor for the History of International Relations and Global Governance at the Department of History and Art of Utrecht University. She's also very well known in the media for her expertise in terrorism. She co-chairs the National Research Agenda, a process which brought together thousands of stakeholders over many months to develop the key research themes for the Netherlands. She has been called a Tsar of Science, a television darling, and the Yomanda of terrorism. Sorry, Beatrice, such is the price of a high media profile. We are very honored that she accepted our invitation. I look forward to hearing her analogies between free-range chickens and academics. Beatrice, the floor is all yours.
Meneer de rector magnificus, mevrouw de voorzitter, dear audience. These days we see increasing numbers of scholars aspiring to live the scientific life, longing to join academia and hoping to follow their vocation. This university is alone home to 349 young PhDs, 25% of your academic staff. It's very good news. At the same time, uncertainty regarding life as an academic and what for many of these young PhDs lies in store thereafter is mounting. Although the majority of these young scholars would like to remain in academia, the fact is that for every 10 there is room in university for only 1 or 2 of them. This afternoon I would have you consider 2 stories or models that seek to outline academic life and its purpose. 1, the utilitarian goose model, and 2, the Humboldtian Bildung model, we will see that the ideals, goals, and expectations of each continue to compete for recognition. And although one of these models is undoubtedly gaining the upper hand, the values of the other model are essential to sustaining the life of the mind. This conflict of values regarding science and the scientist is precipitating a significant degree of uncertainty, not only in politics, but also in academia and society, regarding the aspirations of the academic endeavor and the norms that should hold for these. Let me elaborate a bit on these two models and the conflict between them. First, the Golden Goose model. This first story's opening is very familiar. It's one of Aesop's old fables. Once upon a time, there was a goose who laid a golden egg every day. A few weeks ago, Director General for Research and Innovation of the European Commission, Robert Jan Smits, alluded to this fable. He passionately argued to keep the EU's research investment programs afloat, also during times of financial crisis. In his words, it would be totally unwise to kill the goose that will lay golden eggs in the future, his quote. Compared to Germany and Finland, the EU as a whole does not strike an impressive figure, notwithstanding the common European goal of investing 3% of the GDP in research. Today's figure currently amounts to a meager 1.9%. We cannot build a knowledge society if we don't invest in it, dixit Smits. However, what should interest us today is the language in which Smits's plea is couched and the urgency with which it was made. The scientist as a goose or as the egg, the choice is yours, I presume, is a very powerful narrative. It's easily grasped and most probably designed to reach and win the hearts and minds of the power wielders in Europe. Even they should be lured by the shine of the golden eggs and thus refrain from slaughtering the animal. Science and scientists are here to make money, to increase the GDP, or in a more benevolent version of the same tale, they are expected to solve the problems of humankind, produce more and healthier food, cure cancer, fight climate change. Indeed, these are all essential values. One of your famous scholars, Jan Tinbergen, the first and so far last Dutch winner of the Nobel Prize for Economics, explicitly subscribed to this utilitarian goose and egg model. For him, government spending on science and education was essential since, in his words, it directly contributed to reductions in income inequality. Science policy to reduce income inequality is a veritable blast from the past, although with Piketty it's gaining the upper hand again. However, this functional or commonsensical goose model underlies many of our academic and research agendas, as well as many NWO programs, and it most certainly informs the so-called spearhead program, the topsectorenbeleid. There are, however, other stories to tell than this particular Greek fable. Let me give you the second story. It's a German story instead, and from there explain the uncertainties and clash about goals and norms that emerge for governments and for universities from these stories' incongruences. The second story. This is a very powerful story. It has recently been enacted in the streets of Amsterdam, where students and staff have gained a certain amount of notoriety protesting against the withering away of the communitas academicas. Some of the idealistic rebels were inspired by a longing for the classic ideal of the university as a sanctuary for passionate professors, intellectual interlocutors, and free-thinking spirits. These protests have been a powerful reminder for the second narrative that can be told about the world of higher education. I would call it the story of Bildung, not so much a fairy tale of the Grimm brothers, but rather a path with Humboldtian roots. In this story, the university is a place where norms, values, ethics, and ideals are developed, cultivated, and discussed between students and teachers. In the words of our very own Minister of Education, quote, "Universities and institutions of higher learning are training our future leaders, teachers, judges, nurses, and architects alike, people that set the tone for how we engage and deal with each other in our society," end quote. Martha Nussbaum's not-for-profit, Why Democracy Needs the Humanities, develops this story further. Her plea for Bildung offers a model that does not provide us with one-way research paths, culminating in clear-cut outcomes, in this case, the eggs. It is a model that values particularly the education of critical, empathic citizens and seeks to equip scholars to set out on different routes and in different directions. Bildung does not tie in so well with the logic of neoliberals or the grammar of a capitalist economy. It's rather a model of critical pedagogy for developing individual responsibility, pioneering innovation, and self-examination of democratic citizens. This model considers universities, in the words of Willem Schinkel, as archives of our common knowledge, or as critical caretakers for the public good, and as a community or a civitas where new citizens' ideas, inventions, and potentially innovative initiatives circulate. So, having briefly described these two models, I want to emphasize that both models are valuable, perhaps even equally valuable. In my own research, I started out as an historian, devoted to the ideals of the humanities as expressed by Humboldt and then by Nussbaum and many others. My alma maters were Utrecht and Bonn in Germany. My doctoral research was partly done in Berlin at the Humboldt Universiteit itself. In my work, I came to cherish and value the German way of questioning and deconstructing definitions of security, terrorism, terror, dissidence, and democracy, while studying East German secret police, interviewing Wehrmacht officers, Stasi generals, some of them still call me, which is surprising if you don't expect it, alleged terrorists and counterterrorism officials alike, I gained more and more insight into what sets a democratic charter apart from totalitarian repression, and also how easily lapsing into state terror can happen. Exactly the kinds of insights that I think Nussbaum wants scholars in humanities to develop and disseminate. On the other hand, while working at the Center for Terrorism and Counterterrorism in The Hague over the last 7 years, I experienced true satisfaction from building concrete terrorism database, evaluating very precise counterterrorism laws, directly contributing to the common good, in this case security, rather than devoting myself to indirect critique. The uncertainty, however, mentioned earlier comes into play when we are confronted with the plurality of values and purposes underlying these diverse ideas about the scientific life, and when we would have to make choices and don't know how to handle this incongruity. Do we need to develop better anti-terrorism equipment? Should we concentrate more on understanding, critiquing the advent of surveillance state? You only have so much time and money to do that. You have to make choices, although you don't want to. From conversations with colleagues, I get a strong sense that many of us experience this ambivalence firsthand, that we are torn between these two ways of thinking, seeing them both as valuable. Like me, few of you are probably willing to commit wholeheartedly to any one of these. It seems to me that many of us are willing to retreat completely into an ivory tower. How important that is sometimes is totally underrated, this ivory tower. Although on the other hand, many of us are willing to make a contribution, directly or indirectly, to an improvement of society. But we feel uncomfortable when our work is being completely reduced to this contribution alone. This conflict of values and purposes and the uncertainty that often ensues has gained much more salience in the current situation of budgetary constraints caused by the current state of economic and financial crisis and cutbacks in government spending. So-called top sector spearheads in innovation research have been designated, research monies rechanneled into industrial budgets. This year's NWO success rates in the special sectors, for example in the humanities, even touched a disappointingly dismal low of only 7.5%. On top of that, massification, commodification, and also internationalization of higher education have left their mark on Dutch universities as well. How positive these developments might be sometimes. But against this backdrop of scarcity, the state of uncertainty associated and occasioned by the plurality of values and purposes of which I've spoken is highlighted, and even more transformed into relentless competition. And that starts to spark real conflicts. In other words, one of our stories, the commonsensical goose model, has started to eat up, to colonialize the social system of science, beginning to evaluate with the logics of a different social subsystem, that of economy, that of science. Utilitarianism in its crude economistic form is becoming the dominant discourse, in society as well in academia. Scholars in university are being pushed to the assembly line, pressed to produce preconceived eggs. And it is exactly this imbalance that is troubling. For years, Dutch universities thrived and flourished as they made room for cooperation and competition. Nowadays, the dynamics of competition prevent any long-term investment in cooperation and are undermining the very egalitarian model of the Dutch scientific ecology that is so productive and still is. Of course, academics understand the futility of a state of total non-interference from the outside. They often benefit significantly from external support to finance, develop and apply their research. Large-scale infrastructures, laboratories, PhD training, hiring schemes often need to be developed from above. Programs in minor languages require protection and funding. But it is an illusion to believe that someone from outside or above can design in advance the next sort of golden egg or the facility needed to produce it. Even if such a program of academic engineering would be successful in achieving particular goals, it would not be conducive to new and surprising developments and outcomes. In short, the problem is not the plurality of values and purposes itself, but the attempt by one of these models to overwhelm all the other visions of academic life that our open, liberal and pluralistic society has to give. So, how to go ahead? I offer you 2 steps, also based on my experiences the last year with the National Research Agenda. I think the first step to restore this imbalance is plainly to acknowledge and to defend the diversity and richness of the academics' lives at stake here, and to counter moves that might have one vision, monopolize all others. Academic life cannot be regulated from above. Scholars do not stand orderly in line, not in real life and not in history. Science is never tidy, unified or simple. Academics live in a pluriform community. Some academics adopt the role of the modern-day prophet, moral commentator or priest in public service. Rotterdam houses many of these high priests of social sciences. Marlie Huijen, Ruud Veenhoven, Willem Schinkel, many others. Other scientists work hard to plan, secure, engineer, develop and cultivate natural and social environments. They comment on migrant streams, Engbersen. Ensinger, research brain development, Hanan El Maroun, or improve economic education, Arnold. Rotterdam knows these types of scientists well. If ever the Netherlands had a researcher who devoted himself to the global social challenges of the day, it must be Jan Tinbergen. Others serve science and society alike in the laboratory, for example, to map and identify new viruses, Klaver, Osterhaus, Fouché. Of course, this is totally not exhaustive, but just to name a few different types. And these different types, these scholars, they belong together in one university and one academic community. Selection and prioritization does not enrich the flock's environment, it only impoverishes it. I think this statement seems to align well with your university's mission statement, where students and scholars, quote, of more than 100 nationalities are constantly encouraged to develop their talents and meet their various ambitions. So any story about academic life has to commit itself to watch over this invaluable academic ecosystem we have here in the Netherlands and to shield it against any attempt to tear it apart. The second step. Our interlocutors today, Aesop, Humboldt, Nussbaum and others, have given enough advice to help us to come to terms with the normative uncertainty that render our lives and also the lives of policymakers so complicated today. Based on their stories, a case should be made to improve the balance between the 2 models outlined above. Not to defend well-vested privileges or interests, but to protect the reality that academic space and variety is necessarily instrumental to keep academia alive at all and have it be serving society as it should. Here are some suggestions to help create more space for diversity in academic life, to facilitate a balance of power by protecting the Bildung model from questionable preferences for the Goose model. So first of all, protect the young geese. Sustainable research environment is all about stimulating young talent. Raise the budget of the NWO for Nieuwsbels. I just read in the newspaper that José, the new president of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences, is doing the same. Second, tend the flock. Knowledge bearers do not dwell well alone. Rat race dynamics increase stress, wear down flock fertility, whereas a Brady bunch of scholars of all kinds of feathers and colors will aid fecundity nicely. Increase the number of individual PhD positions at the department level, rather than embed them alone in large-scale EU and WO programs. Third, feed the flock. Sow seed money with broad strokes to stimulate diversity and surprise, with no advanced prioritization or selection of disciplines or themes. and feed generously. EU standards of scientific funding, I said it before, have fallen below the 3% mark here in the Netherlands. Rather than downplaying statistics, we have to talk knowledge economy here. NWO success rates have to surpass the 18% success rate, otherwise they become a lottery, and research cannot be a lottery. Fifth advice, organize free-range poultry holdings. In line with investigations into the workload of academics, give research the time they need to think and to write, to take a time out now and then, or make them take a time out now and then. Implement the Anglo-American sabbatical for all research stuff. 6, don't discriminate. Universities need talented teachers as much as they do research geniuses, media darlings, administrators. So encourage public and academic service by conferring awards, with monetary footnotes, if it may be, for good teaching, scholarly achievement, media presence, etc. 7, let the geese loose. Stick to the holding principle. It's an old principle which accommodates the idea that decisions about how and what to spend research funds on should be made by peers rather than managers or politicians. 8, acquaint others with the flock. Sell first-row seats to politicians, managers, captains of industry, allowing them to contribute to lectures or to enjoy a research internship within research groups or laboratories in order to demonstrate the value of the building model from within. And last but not least, a note with specific address, 9, to the Executive Board of the Erasmus University. Please immediately commission an excellent economic historian, you have so many of them here, to write the biography of Rotterdam's greatest scholar, Jan Tinbergen. I started writing about him this summer, and his 1974 biography is but a flimsy tribute to your only Nobel Prize laureate. So, finally, hopefully, the National Research Agenda will be able to highlight and help to protect the varieties and diversities within academic life in the Netherlands. Ministry of Education launched this plan last year to facilitate links and connections between various research agendas to help identify pressing questions posed by the Dutch populace that deserve further research. Together with Alexander de Nooy-Kan, who gives this esteemed audience his warmest wishes today, I am co-chair of the National Research Agendas, and together with the steering committee, we think now that it's important to turn this initiative into a platform that demonstrates what scholars here in the Netherlands are already capable of and why they need and deserve more resources. Given current discussions within the steering committee, I think we will able, and I hope we will be able to showcase to the Parliament and politics alike the wealth of questions coming from the general public, from scientists and from industry to suggest possible ways in which Dutch scholars can address these questions, but even stronger, to call for more funding to make this happen. The NWA calls for diversity within and protection of our academic ecosystem, not just to produce more acts, but also in line with Nussbaum to enhance our society's ability to think critically, to educate knowledgeable, empathic citizens, and to deal with complex global problems. Among the over 12,000 queries submitted online, many ask questions having to do with the origins of mankind, with society's resilience, with identity, democratic citizenship, and also even the need for spirituality and religiosity. Utilitarian motives did not predominate. The National Research Agenda explicitly intends to honor these pressing questions, and I trust that we will be able to help appropriate parties to rise to this challenge. Germany, we are not spending 18 billion euros for the next years in science. But perhaps we could take a look at Finland, a small country that managed to seriously invest in a knowledge society, even in times of severe crisis. Golden eggs rolling off an assembly line might speak to some, but coming to knowledge does not, nor do those who harbor, garner, and cultivate its growing belong to the realm of fairy tales. Neither should these fertile geese be confined to large-scale poultry halls. If anything, this lecture is a plea for regulations protecting and enabling our knowledgeable, informed, well-staffed and knowledge-seeking communities, laboratories, research, development departments and universities alike, as heterogeneous, complex and multiple as they may be. Historian Lorraine Deston argued in her Premium Erasmianum essay in 2005 that the history of science provides a unique self-portrait of Europe. She said that, and I quote, "No other culture has relied so heavily on the history of science to define its own identity. Since Europe became Europe in its own eyes, science has been held up as its image and its emblem, whether understood as inexorable progress, of vertiginous chance and change, or tragic loss of tradition. Society would do well to harbor and nourish variety within academic life, and uphold an openness and correlative degree of unpredictability regarding the plurality of goals and purposes that need to be retained together within the halls of academy. Each of us are part of this enterprise, and each of us are part of the portrait I've sought to paint this afternoon." Thank you very much.
Dear Beatrice, many thanks for your inspiring speech. It helps us to find our way through academic life in the context of what you already told us, normative uncertainty. And furthermore, I wish you a lot of success in completing the national research agenda, which you, together with Alexander Rinoy-Kan, well known here, will present in November. The academic community of our university is looking forward to it. And for now, let's switch gears a little bit and go to the award ceremony. Every year, Erasmus University presents a number of university awards to researchers, students, and members of staff in acknowledgement of exceptional achievements. I will be presenting these awards together with Bart Straatman, member of the Executive Board, Christian van Driel, student of the Erasmus School of Economics and member of the jury of the Education Prize and Lambus Prize. So we can now start the first video with respect to the Education Prize and the Professor Lambus Prize.
Erasmus University proudly presents this year's Academic Prize winners. Every year, Erasmus University Rotterdam awards the Education Prize to a researcher who has made a particularly commendable contribution to education at our university. Dr. Maaike Slot of Erasmus School of History, Culture and Communication is an enthusiastic lecturer who is actively involved in new innovations in education. For example, Dr. Slot has established an academic bulletin to teach students how to perform scholarly research, as well as involving herself in the organization of online courses. Finally, Slot's students praise her approach to teaching. The Professor H.W. Lambus Prize is presented every year to an outstanding student with 2 master's degrees, of which at least one has been conferred a cum laude distinction. José Nederhand of the Faculty of Social Sciences has built up an impressive CV. For example, Nederhand is the principal or co-author of a sizable number of publications, has already received a variety of awards while still a student, and was enrolled in 2 Erasmus Honours programs. Not to mention the high quality of her thesis. We wish José Nederhand the very best of luck with her doctoral research.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to come forward, Dr. Maaike Slot, Education Prize, and José Nederhand, Lamberts Prize. Please come forward. And of course also Christian van Driel, who will assist me by handing over the different awards. You can applaud again. Then we continue with research, and so we'll show you the second film.
Let's continue with this year's academic prize winners. Erasmus University's Research Prize is awarded once a year to a promising postdoctoral researcher who has put in an outstanding performance in the field of research. Dr. Wiele Berhink of Erasmus MC has managed to build a very distinctive profile for herself very early in her career. She has been awarded a Rubicon grant and an EUR fellowship and serves as work package leader within a major European consortium. On top of that, Wiele Berhink is also involved in clinical research, by no means a given in her specific field. She puts a lot of time into building an effective research group and knows how to get the necessary media exposure. The Professor G.W.J. Brown's Prize is intended for research master students who excel in terms of their academic performance and research qualities. The simple fact is that Elina Vesonen of the Faculty of Philosophy is an outstanding student. The jury was very impressed by her CV, the strong drive she showed in her defense, and the clarity of her nomination. The subject of Vesonen's master thesis, Concepts in Science, is challenging and offers interesting reflections on both methodology and interdisciplinary scholarship. The Rotterdam Thesis Award is a joint initiative of Erasmus University Rotterdam and the Municipality of Rotterdam. Through this award, we hope to encourage students to make an active contribution to societal developments within the city itself. After 2 rounds of rigorous evaluations, sociology student Aaron van Haften's thesis on civil society as a social incubator was selected as this year's best entry. The research that forms the basis for this thesis has been well executed and is described concisely and clearly. Furthermore, the jury believes that its subject is very relevant to the extremely diverse city of Rotterdam. The author has formulated solid conclusions that have a concrete practical value for local policymakers.
Wiele Berhink, Research Prize. Elina Vesonen, Bruins Prize. Arend van Haften, Rotterdam Thesis Award. Please join me here on stage. And then we go to the third film concerning the top support awards, who will be presented by my colleague Bart Straatman.
These are the final academic prize winners. A university not only becomes world-class thanks to the excellent work of its lecturers and researchers, but also thanks to its support staff. In recognition of their valuable contributions, each year we present top support awards to 2 members of the support staff. Diana Hoek works as Senior Event Manager in the university's Marketing and Communication Department. Hoek is the driving force behind the university's corporate events, which are of an exceptionally high quality thanks to her efforts. Diana Hoek ensures that these events run without a hitch, is sensitive to the client's specific needs, and consistently has the university's interests at heart. As such, her contribution to Erasmus University's image and profile is invaluable. Joop van Marek, Executive Director of Erasmus University College, has put in an outstanding performance in the development, structuring and technical support of EUC. From the outset, Van Marek was not afraid to take risks in the interest of EUC's success, and he was always the first to offer a helping hand in a difficult situation. Joop van Marek is clever, creative, flexible and honest. The EUC owes its present success to his strong dedication and collaborative approach.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present this year's Top Support Award to Diana Hoek and Joop van Marek. Please come forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, we live in an age where it is becoming increasingly important to make new connections. I spoke about Erasmus Without Borders during my speech at last year's Dies Natalis. I talked about how Erasmus' time was marked by the discovery of new continents and increasing access to new knowledge. We too are riding a new wave of globalization in which universities play an important role thanks to the free exchange of knowledge in international networks. Collaboration and looking for new connections between scientific disciplines are perfectly suited to the Dutch mercantile spirit and to the Rotterdam characteristic determination to get the job done. You could say it's in our blood, in our DNA. This trait was even documented in the book that commemorated our centenary last year. Therefore, I want to assign a motto to this new academic year: crossing boundaries. By crossing boundaries within and beyond the walls of academia, we can gain new insights, make a significant start on initiatives, and let knowledge flow even more freely in the interest of progress and an enriched society. This is why I believe we should focus on advancing together at the national and international levels and within the university itself. Outside our university, we can achieve this by means of partnerships with fellow institutions in the Netherlands and in other countries. Allow me to highlight some examples that show us the value of crossing boundaries and that can be used as models for new ventures. Over the next 7 years, our Medical Delta Alliance with the Universities of Leiden and Delft will play an important role in a European consortium called InnoLife. We will work on innovative products and services for healthy living and for keeping active into old age. We have made new alliances in education. For example, in a few days we will launch a new joint degree a unique European master program in health economics and management, organized in close partnership with 3 European universities, Innsbruck, Bologna and Oslo. Furthermore, our own Rotterdam School of Management is about to launch a joint MBA with the University of Cologne. Our collaborations with Leiden University and Delft University of Technology have also proven fruitful. We collaborate in 8 multidisciplinary centers. One of them, the Center for Frugal Innovation, brings high-quality products within the reach of millions of African citizens. And we are also working hard in the Center for Education and Learning to implement new forms of e-learning. At the national level, we are also involved in the National Research Agenda, which seeks to create new connections between science and society. Our guest speaker, Beatrice de Graaf, already highlighted this project a moment ago. But, ladies and gentlemen, at this point I want to emphasize that when discussing the National Research Agenda, we should remember that funding is a prerequisite to realize its objectives. I too call, therefore, on the Dutch academic community to join forces to convince the politicians in The Hague that they need to honor the responsibility in this regard. Closer to home, we have a wonderful partnership with the city of Rotterdam, our home under the motto, "Make it happen." The concept of the city as a laboratory is gaining shape within this collaboration. Rotterdam is also very diverse in many ways. This has urged us to launch a task force for diversity in collaboration with Leiden University and the Free University in Amsterdam. This aims to better utilize the tremendous potential of different cultures and genders for science, education and the employment market. Just like the previous examples, this initiative shows that as a university we are becoming more and more successful to fulfill our responsibility towards society. As well as looking outside the university for boundaries to cross, it is also important to cross internal boundaries in our faculties and institutes. I'm not referring to physical buildings or types of organizations, but rather the scientific disciplines. They form the cornerstone of our academic community. I would like scientists to connect with each other beyond those walls that divide our university's different faculties and departments. As scientists, we should not isolate ourselves within our research agendas and our own expertise. Instead, we must use our disciplinary knowledge as a pillar we can stand on to see beyond the known horizons. That's the only way you can keep track of what other colleagues are doing and remain visible to others, including those working outside our own field. The success of this approach is shown by the high-quality grant proposals we receive every year for the Research Excellence Initiative. Through many conversations on our campus, I know that our new generation of scientists would also like to see more collaboration. This was one of the findings of our recent Rethink and Philosophy Ground discussions as well. I wholeheartedly endorse their desire. I'm eager and I'm also ambitious to create more connections. We also need to see more connections between educational disciplines. In this increasingly complex society, the German tradition of self-cultivation called, it was already mentioned, Bildung, and the associated broader academic development of our students are becoming more and more important. The bachelor double degree with philosophy is a fine and highly successful example of new collaboration across faculty boundaries. However, there is still room for improvement. Many of our international students I have spoken with over the past year are a little bit disappointed with our separate systems, separate annual schedules, separate rules, and separate planning, which makes that difficult for them to understand and to handle. This is why I would like to see greater harmonization and transparency in our schedules. This will make it easier for our degree programs to exchange modules and increase students' options. Indeed, Bildung, collaboration, and internationalization all benefit from more options and synchronization in our bachelor programs. As a modern university, we are obliged to develop and enhance this particular aspect. There's also a crucial role for the university's support staff to look beyond existing boundaries and connect with both scientists and students. That is why we, as Executive Board, continue our investments in the active support of researchers, helping them in their day-to-day activities. Excellent support is vital in achieving our strategic objectives. Let us agree to work together in a concerted effort to make this happen. In short, let's not be afraid to be critical of ourselves and our organization. Have we put up walls between our departments that prevent effective collaboration? Are we ready for the future with our current organization? Together, I hope we can answer these questions. I look forward to do this discussion, this interesting discussion, with all of you and discuss it real. Ladies and gentlemen, some of you may still see me as a doctor, first and foremost. That is why I would like to conclude with a quote from that most highbrow of sources, the fictional Dr. Meredith Grey from TV's medical drama series, Grey's Anatomy, who said, "Boundaries don't keep other people out, they fence you in. If you are willing to throw caution to the wind and take a chance, the view from the other side is spectacular." It's therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that with great pleasure I now declare the 2015-2016 academic year open. I wish our students and scientific staff every success and look forward to further strengthening Erasmus University in the upcoming year by crossing boundaries wherever we can. Thank you very much.